Good morning. It's Thursday, May 2nd. I'm NASA's Sandra Jones, and you're looking at a live view inside of the Dragon Endeavour spacecraft as we await its relocation from one docking port on the International Space Station to another. Today's port relocation of Dragon will see it move from the International Docking Adapter 2, or IDA-2, on the forward port of Harmony to IDA-3 on the Zenith, or space-facing Harmony port. This relocation is taking place ahead of the historic crewed flight test of the Boeing Starliner vehicle to the International Space Station, with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams aboard. Starliner is slated to launch on Tuesday, May 6th at 10:34 p.m. But before that launch, we do need to move Dragon to the Zenith port to allow Starliner to dock to the forward port. At this hour, the team in Mission Control Houston, being led by Flight Director Paul Kanya, and SpaceX are working through a slight decrease in SpaceX cabin pressure. This is potentially due to one of the valves that controls cabin humidity inside Dragon. At this time, we're around 50 minutes down from the expected timeline. However, we are not up against a time constraint this morning for this relocation, and the team is going to continue to work through things, and we will provide updates along the way on that status. So again, today Crew-8 will be making a short trip in Dragon during this relocation. Crew-8 consists of NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin. Crew-8 is currently suited up and inside the Dragon Endeavour ahead of the undocking. We are now targeting that undocking command for around 7:30 a.m. Central, with physical separation at 7:35 a.m. Central. Following that, we are expecting redocking to occur on the Zenith port around 8:18 a.m. Central. And as always, it does take two to tango. Mission Control Houston is working very closely alongside SpaceX for this operation. So joining me today from SpaceX to discuss the operations a little further during this port relocation is Jesse Anderson. Hey, Jesse.
Right now.
And this view inside the International Space Station of NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. Again, she's working through those hatch closure procedures. The APAS hatch is closed. Following this, they will depressurize the vestibule. That's the area that will be exposed to vacuum following the undocking of Dragon. Dragon will be moving from the forward port of Harmony to the Zenith port of Harmony in anticipation of the Boeing Starliner vehicle arrival, with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Starliner is slated to launch on Tuesday, May 6th at 10:34 p.m. Central. But again, before that launch, we do need to move Dragon to the Zenith port to allow Starliner to dock to that forward port. The team was working a issue earlier this morning with one of the valves that controls humidity in the cabin not behaving properly. However, that issue has since been better understood and resolved, and the team is now proceeding through the undocking procedures. We are targeting the undocking command to be sent at 7:40 a.m. Central. About 5 minutes later, we'll see the physical separation. They did dock to the Harmony Forward module, which they are still currently docked to, but they are going to be moving to the Zenith port of the International Space Station this morning. And there you see the crew on your screen. Again, Crew-8 is made up of Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin and NASA astronauts Mike Barrett, Matt Dominic, and Jeanette Epps. As we await those Dragon vestibule leak checks to be complete, let's take a little look ahead about some of the events that we expect to see this morning. At 7:50 a.m. Central, the undocking command will be sent from the ground to Dragon. Following this, about 5 minutes later, at 7:55 a.m. Central, we will see physical separation. Once the umbilicals retract, those umbilicals do hold or provide power between the space station and Dragon, and then we will need to have the 12 hooks that hold Dragon into place retract before we do actually see that physical separation occur. After that, Dragon will fire its thrusters in 2 very short bursts to help break the stiction between Dragon and the docking port, and physical separation from the station will occur. Dragon will begin to slowly back away from the International Space Station, and then will hold at approximately 60 meters away from the space station. At that point, a check will occur, and if the ground teams believe everything is looking good, Dragon will begin to move in front of the International Space Station to above it, and that is a relocation maneuver, or you might hear it called transition maneuver on the loops this morning. We expect this maneuver to take about 25 minutes, and then Dragon will arrive to the Zenith port of the International Space Station. But before it does dock, there will be a check-in halfway at what you call the midpoint. At this point, again, it will stop and hold about 60 meters above the Node 2 Zenith port before preparing for final approach. Once we reach that area, flight controllers and Hawthorne will...
Station, Dragon undock and departure review complete, and ISS crew is ready for departure.
Here's your copies.
And good words there, the crew aboard the International Space Station ready for Crew-8 port relocation this morning. So again, once we are in that 60-meter hold above the Node 2 Zenith port, the flight controllers in Hawthorne will once again command Dragon to begin its approach, flying until it reaches the waypoint 2. Waypoint 2 is just 20 meters away from the space station, and once Dragon does reach that 20 meters, it will hold one final time for teams on the ground and the astronauts aboard Dragon to do a final check before docking. And if everything continues to go per our updated timeline, we are expecting that redocking to occur at 8:38 a.m. Central Time this morning. Following docking, Dragon's soft capture system will retract to bring the Dragon spacecraft in closer for hard capture, and that's accomplished by deploying 12 hooks to firmly hold Dragon in place, and in all, that procedure takes about 15 minutes. Following docking this morning, flight controllers will then configure Dragon for docked operations and connect power and data to the spacecraft once more, and the crew will be able to get out of their spacesuits, set them up to dry, and then begin operations to get the hatches back open, which includes pressurizing the vestibule and a new round of leak checks. And we are a little less than 3 minutes away from that undocking command to be sent to Dragon. Again, it does take about 5 minutes for Dragon to actually physically separate from the International Space Station. Those umbilicals that are attached to Dragon and Space Station and provide that power will be retracted, as well as the 12 hooks that hold Dragon in place will also be retracted, enabling those 2 short firings to occur to break that stiction from Dragon and the International Space Station, and then at that point we will see physical separation. Targeting 7:55 a.m. Central Time this morning for that physical separation, and 7:50 a.m. for the undocking command to be sent from the ground to Dragon.
Dragon, you were garbled there, and just for awareness, will be about 12:51 for our undock time.
Copies with your visors closed for undock.
Copy, visors closed.
And you did hear that call. They're now targeting 7:51 a.m. Central for the undocking command to be sent. The crew also did let us know that their visors are...
Houston on a big loop. Dragon is transmitting video. Please confirm video and data are updating in the Dragon docking monitor.
can confirm video and data on the Dragon docking monitor.
Roger.
And we did hear that call out about the visors being closed. The crew will keep their visors closed during this more dynamic phase of the mission as they do undock from the forward port of Harmony to the and redock to the Zenith port of Harmony. We're expecting that undocking command to be sent in about a minute.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Final reconfigurations for undock are complete and nominal. As we previously briefed, dehumidifier Bravo 2 remains disallowed, and we have no concerns for the op there. So we are ready to repark Dragon ahead of Sonny and Butch arriving on Starliner next week. We will be sending the undock command here in a few moments.
Copies.
Station Houston on a big loop. Perform steps 2 through the end in 1.602 Dragon port relocation monitoring.
ISS crew is ready for Dragon undocking. We'll code 2 through the end of 1.602. Let's make way for CFT.
Undock sequence commanded.
And the command was sent to undock Dragon from the forward port of the International Space Station to the Zenith port. The umbilicals are now retracting. It will take about 5 minutes before we do see physical separation. That is to allow those 12 hooks that are attaching Dragon to the space station to retract. And those umbilicals now demated.
Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
The first set of hooks is now opening. Again, there's 12 hooks in all, but there's 2 sets of 6. So those first 6 hooks are now underway of opening. Everything looking good for hook opening so far. And we are in a brief handover between our satellites, but we are expecting to get imagery in time to actually see Dragon undock this morning. That first set of hooks is continuing to open up, everything looking good on that end. And if you're just joining us this morning, we are in the process of undocking of a port for a port relocation of the Crew-8 Dragon Endeavour from the forward port of Harmony to the Zenith port of Harmony in anticipation of the Boeing Starliner arrival next week. The first set of hooks is opening to release Dragon from the International Space Station. Once this first set is open, the next set of 6 will open up. And the first set of hooks is now open.
First set of hooks open and nominal.
Second.
Once the second set of 6 hooks open, 2 very short firings will occur to break the stiction between Dragon and the space station, and it's at that point which we will actually see the physical separation of Dragon occur. Second set of hooks continues to open as planned. Everything continuing to go smoothly in the second set of hooks opening. Second set of hooks open.
All hooks open and nominal.
Good.
And Dragon has undocked from the International Space Station at 7:57 a.m. east of the Bahamas. And that first burn has been completed and nominal.
Station Dragon separation visually confirmed.
Station copies.
And those words of NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson on board Space Station, letting us know she does actually see physical separation herself. We are still in that handover between our satellites, but once we regain communications, we'll see views.
Relocate zero burn is complete.
Good.
And all of the undocking burns were successful. And as Dragon continues to back away from the International Space Station, it's working to acquire its LiDAR tracking, which will be used by Dragon to autonomously execute the relocation maneuver.
Houston Station, ISIS thrusters enabled per Rock Charlie.
Station copies.
And so we are expecting a hold at 60 meters away from the International Space Station. If Dragon does go past that 60-meter mark, it can approach back to the 60-meter mark distance before the relocation maneuver.
Dragon SpaceX. Dragon has reacquired. Ground will be commanding a hold here shortly.
Dragon copies.
And we did hear that call out that the hold is now going to begin here shortly. Again, this hold is occurring at the 60-meter mark. And if you're just joining us this morning, the Crew Dragon Endeavour undocked from the International Space Station as part of a port relocation at 7:57 a.m. Central Time while flying east over the Bahamas. Dragon undocked from the forward port of Harmony and will relocate to the Zenith port of the Harmony module of the International Space Station in anticipation of the Boeing Starliner crew arrival. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams are slated to launch on Starliner on Monday.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground has confirmed good relative navigation performance, and we will be commanding a go to relocate shortly. You have a go to raise your visors.
Dragon copies.
And everything continuing to proceed as expected this morning. The crew did get the go to put their visors up now that they are past some of the more dynamic phases of the undocking. And Dragon is go for that translational maneuver to help move it up in front of the International Space Station ahead of its docking to the Zenith port or space-facing port of the space station. Everything continuing to go smoothly this morning following the undocking of Dragon Endeavour from the space station at 7:57 a.m. Central. Dragon is making its way to the Zenith port of the International Space Station, but before it does get there, there will be a midpoint hold. This will allow the team to check out and make sure everything is looking good for the trajectory ahead of redocking. Excuse me.
If you're just now joining us, you are tuned in to the relocation of the Dragon Endeavour with the Crew-8 crew on board Dragon. That is just in case of any off-nominal situations that may happen. The crew is prepared to return back to Earth if necessary, but so far, as Sandra has been mentioning, everything is proceeding as nominal. We are in the process of translating Dragon and in the undocking and relocation maneuvering, as Dragon is being moved from the forward-facing port on the Harmony module, the IDA-2, and moving towards the Zenith or space-facing port at IDA-3, and we'll be redocking to that location. Again, we are in process of that translation maneuver. As Sandra mentioned, there will be a hold through the maneuver, and these holds are there to make sure that we can check to make sure that everything is proceeding nominally.
On the Fleet Loop, ground will be commanding relocate transfer to begin axis transition. As a reminder, soft capture ring deploy will begin once you are in relocate to axis, which is after the midpoint.
Copy, thank you.
And as we do await Dragon to reach that midpoint hold, everything continuing to go smoothly. Undocking did occur this morning at 7:57 a.m. Central Time. Following that, the umbilicals retracted, the hooks open, and a series of short burns occurred to break the stiction between Dragon and the International Space Station. Dragon then did complete a hold at 60 meters and is now swinging around, heading to the Zenith port of the International Space Station. And we are getting our first view of Dragon now, following that undocking. Dragon is about 62 meters away from the International Space Station at this point. And an even better view there on your screen, you can really see the nose cone open, you can see the solar arrays. Again, undocking did occur at 7:57 a.m. Central Time this morning. We are targeting redocking to the Zenith port of the Harmony module to occur at 8:41 a.m. Central Time this morning.
Station Houston, Big Loop, monitor for step 6 now in 1.602.
Good work.
And some cool views there. You can see that Dragon is firing some of its thrusters as it is maneuvering its way to its new home location, the Zenith port on the Harmony module. And a great view there again of Dragon with the Crew-8 members on board. And you can see that the nose cone is deployed through this relocation from port to port. We do not need to close that nose cone as we do use the Draco thrusters, the forward bulkhead thrusters on the vehicle to perform this maneuver. So we'll keep that nose cone open, but it's typically there to be able to protect the docking system and guidance navigation system when those thrusters are not in use.
And Dragon is now about 60 meters away from the International Space Station. And so we are now getting a view on our screen of what Dragon's LiDAR system is seeing. That is the International Space Station's forward port where it just undocked from. As you can see, Dragon is beginning to make its way more in front of the space station as it prepares to redock on top of the International Space Station to the Zenith port of Harmony. Dragon is now 62 meters away from the International Space Station. Everything continuing to go smoothly this morning. And if you are just joining us this morning, we are covering the undocking of the Crew-8 Endeavour spacecraft from the forward port of Harmony, which you do see on your screen there, which Dragon undocked from at 7:57 a.m. Central Time this morning. Dragon is performing a relocation to the Zenith, or space-facing port of the International Space Station. You can see it there on the top of your screen. It's performing that relocation ahead of the launch of the Boeing Starliner crew. Starliner is slated to launch to the International Space Station on Monday evening.
Dragon copies.
Great news there. You just heard that the soft capture ring retraction is now complete.
And with the soft capture ring retracted successfully, the next milestone that we'll look towards is the first set of 6 hooks driving. Following that, we'll have the second set of hooks driving, and you are getting a view on your screen now of Dragon docked to the International Space Station. This is a view from Dragon's camera of the Zenith port of the International Space Station. That circular
Dragon Station, Houston, on the big loop. MCS is configured, proceeding with hook driving.
Any copies?
2 copies.
And so that first set of hooks is now driving again. There's 12 in total. They drive in sets of 6. So the first 6 is beginning to complete that drive. Once all 12 are successfully driven, we will have what is called a hard capture. That circular object with the crosshair that you see in the middle of your screen there is the docking target. NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson affixed the docking target to the outside of the APAS hatch on the Zenith port of the International Space Station earlier before closing it. Rather, it was already closed, but that creates that space between Dragon and station known as the vestibule. This portion will have to be repressurized before the crew inside Dragon does re-enter the International Space Station. Continuing to stand by as that first set of hooks drives. Everything going smoothly so far. And the first set of hooks is now closed. Second set beginning to close.
Once that second set of hooks does close, the hard capture will be confirmed, and then the umbilical can then begin attached from Dragon to the International Space Station. As we saw, that the Dragon trunk is still attached to Dragon when it is not connected to the International Space Station. That is how Dragon gets power. But while it is docked and parked at the International Space Station, it can connect to the station's power and utilize power from there.
And once that second set is successfully driven, and after all docking events are completed, flight controllers will configure Dragon for docked operations and will reconnect power and data to the spacecraft to the crew currently inside Dragon. Again, that is NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin. Soon they will be able to get out of those spacesuits that they've been wearing for the entirety of today's port relocation, and will begin the operations to get the hatches back open. This will include pressurizing that vestibule and a new round of leak checks. Now 10 minutes since Dragon made its new home on the International Space Station at International Docking Adapter 3, or the Zenith port on the Harmony module.
On the big loop, hard capture is complete.
Take that and copy. Mark that's complete. Others.
And we did hear confirmation that that second set of hooks has successfully driven, giving us what we call a hard capture. And Crew-8 again has successfully docked to the Zenith port, or the space-facing port of the International Space Station. Crew-8 will now be able to get out of their spacesuits and begin the process of opening up the hatches. In all, this will take about 2 hours. But with a successful port relocation this morning, we're going to wrap up our coverage of Dragon's relocation from the forward port of Harmony to the Zenith port of Harmony in preparation for the historic crewed test flight of the Boeing Starliner vehicle with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams aboard. You can watch live launch coverage beginning at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Monday, May 6th, ahead of launch at 10:34 p.m. Eastern. We do hope you'll join us then, but for now, this is Mission Control Houston.